Over 2,000 years ago, in a time of ancient wonders and great empires, stretching from the sandy deserts of Egypt to the misty shores of Britain, Rome was a land of incredible achievements. It was a place where emperors ruled, gladiators fought in grand arenas, and legions of soldiers marched across the land, conquering and claiming in the name of Rome. But amidst the grandeur and glory of Rome, there are tales of bravery, stories of those who dared to stand against this colossal empire. And among these stories, one name echoes through history: Spartacus, the slave who became a legend. Our story begins in a place far from the heart of Rome, in the rugged lands of Thrace. Today we know this area as part of Bulgaria, Greece and Turkey, but back then it was a wild and untamed land, home to fierce warriors and ancient traditions. Spartacus was born here, in a small village that bore his name. The people of Thrace were seen as uncivilized by the Romans, often labeled as barbarians. Yet Spartacus was different. He grew up learning the ways of his people, the Thracians, known for their bravery and skill in battle. Life in Thrace was not easy. The land was harsh, and the threat of conflict was ever present. Young Spartacus would have grown up hearing tales of battles and heroes, perhaps dreaming of one day becoming a warrior himself. Fate, however, had other plans for Spartacus. His journey took a tragic turn when he was captured by the Romans. Thrace was often at odds with Rome, and during one of these conflicts, Spartacus was taken prisoner. His strength and warrior spirit caught the attention of his captors, and instead of being put to work in the fields or mines like many slaves, he was sent to a gladiator school. Gladiators were the superstars of ancient Rome, fighters who entertained the masses in brutal combat. It was a life of fame, but also of great danger. Spartacus was sent to the gladiator school of Lentulus Batiatus in the city of Capua, a place where the roar of the crowd and the clash of steel were part of everyday life. Here, Spartacus was trained to fight, to entertain, and to survive. He learned the art of combat, honed his skills with various weapons, and fought in the arena, all the while dreaming of freedom. But Spartacus was more than just a skilled fighter. He was a natural leader, earning the respect and loyalty of his fellow gladiators. In 73 BC, the fires of rebellion were sparked. Spartacus, along with about 200 other gladiators, saw their chance for freedom and seized it. They staged a daring escape from the gladiator school, fighting their way out with whatever weapons they could find. It was a bold and risky move, but Spartacus knew that a life of slavery was no life at all. Once free, Spartacus and his band of gladiators took to the countryside. They were outlaws, hunted by Rome, but they were also symbols of hope for the oppressed. Spartacus's group quickly grew as more and more slaves joined their ranks, eager to fight for their freedom. Spartacus's army, though made up of slaves and untrained fighters, was a force to be reckoned with. They were motivated by a desire for freedom, a powerful force that drove them to face incredible odds. Spartacus himself became more than just their leader. He was their symbol of hope, a man who dared to stand against the might of Rome. As Spartacus's army grew, so did their boldness. They didn't just run or hide, they started to fight back. Spartacus knew they couldn't take on the Roman army in a straight fight. The Romans were too powerful, too well trained. So he used guerrilla tactics, surprise attacks, and clever strategies to outsmart the Roman forces. The first battles were small. Spartacus and his men would ambush Roman soldiers, steal weapons and supplies, then disappear into the countryside. Each victory, no matter how small, was a triumph. It boosted the morale of his followers and attracted even more slaves to his cause. But these victories did more than just grow Spartacus's army. They embarrassed Rome. Here was a band of slaves and gladiators, defeating Roman soldiers on their own turf. The Senate, the ruling body of Rome, couldn't let this continue. They sent larger forces, determined to crush Spartacus and his followers. Spartacus was a brilliant tactician. He knew the land well and used it to his advantage. He also understood his enemy. Having been trained as a gladiator, he knew how Roman soldiers fought, their strengths and their weaknesses. Spartacus's tactics were unconventional. He avoided open battles where the Roman legions were strongest. Instead, he favored quick surprise attacks. He would strike fast, cause chaos, then retreat before the Romans could organize a counterattack. These tactics kept the Romans off balance. They were used to fighting enemies who met them head-on in battle, not those who struck from the shadows and vanished like ghosts. Despite his successes, Spartacus faced immense challenges. His army, though large, was not a professional fighting force. They were slaves and gladiators, untrained in the disciplined warfare tactics of the Roman legions. The Roman response to Spartacus's rebellion became more organized and ruthless over time. They sent their best generals and soldiers to deal with the threat. The battles became bigger and more brutal. Spartacus's army won some of these clashes, but the tide was turning against them. In 71 BC, the Roman forces finally cornered Spartacus and his army in southern Italy. The final battle was fierce and bloody. Spartacus fought valiantly, but in the end, his forces were overwhelmed. Spartacus's death in battle marked the end of the rebellion. The Romans showed no mercy to those who had dared to stand against them. Thousands of Spartacus's followers were captured and crucified, their bodies lining the Appian Way, a grim reminder of the consequences of defying Rome. Spartacus's body was never found, lost in the chaos of that final battle. But his impact would last far beyond his death. The rebellion he led shook the Roman Empire, showing that even the most oppressed could rise up against their oppressors. The story of Spartacus became a legend, a tale of courage against impossible odds. He became a symbol of hope and freedom, not just to the slaves of Rome, but to all who suffer oppression. Spartacus's rebellion also had a more practical impact. It forced the Romans to reconsider how they treated their slaves. While slavery continued, some laws were changed to improve the conditions of slaves and reduce the chances of another revolt. Today, Spartacus is remembered not just as a slave or a gladiator, but as a hero who stood up for freedom and dignity. His story has been told in books, movies, and plays, inspiring countless people around the world to fight for what they believe in.